here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Monday, November 7th, 2016, start of a brand new week. Tomorrow is Election Day. And we have got a lot of stuff to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room ready to answer the phone. And there's just so much going on here now. Of course, obviously, everybody should have their red clothing, shirts, jacket, hat, whatever, to wear out tomorrow as you go and vote at the polls. And if you see any kind of election fraud, it is your duty as an American citizen to scream bloody murder about it. Stand by that machine or that punch card or whatever. Demand an election observer to come on over and document what it is that you have found. And the Clinton people are hitting the panic button. Earlier today, there was supposed to be another WikiLeaks dump today that would be the final coup de grace against Hillary Clinton. Hasn't appeared yet. WikiLeaks servers were taken down in a massive distributed denial of service attack. Twitter was taken down for a while because Twitter is where WikiLeaks announces when they dump things. And the Tantrum Squad has really been intensely attacking my server all morning long, as probably anybody who's tried to check in is already aware here. So this is it. This is the final showdown coming on down. Now then, obviously over the weekend, the big news that got everybody upset was yesterday, FBI Director James Comey sent a letter to Congress saying that after reviewing the 650,000 emails found on Huma Abedin and Anthony Weiner's laptop a week ago, they have decided there's nothing there. No criminality. They're not. Comey is not changing his recommendation not to file charges against Hillary Rodham Clinton. The only problem is it's impossible for the FBI to have read and analyzed 650,000 emails in just 10 days. Now, remember, on October 28th, Comey came on out and said that this evaluation of the emails would take many, many weeks and that there was no way the investigation would possibly conclude before the election. And then 2 days before the election, he says, we're done. She's fine. Everything's just fine here. Maybe he was going through all those files and he found his own suicide note or something. But it's ridiculous. This has to go down in history as the fastest FBI investigation ever performed. And remember, it took the FBI a year to go through 33,000 emails, and now Comey is saying they've gone through 650,000 in just a week. It proves Trump is correct. The system is corrupted. Now, as it turns out, we know that Comey didn't want to go on out with reopening the investigation, but we found out how his hand was forced, because Judicial Watch on that Friday filed a lawsuit under the Freedom of Information Act law for the records of the FBI investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server. Now, once the investigation is closed, those FBI records become public documents, and they can be acquired through the Freedom of Information Act. The only way that Comey could keep Judicial Watch from getting those documents before the election was to reopen the case. Do you remember the Tylenol poisonings case, where they were keeping that officially open, so the families of the victims of the Tylenol poisoning couldn't file for the police and investigative records? Oh, it's an ongoing investigation. You can't look at that. That's what Comey was trying to do. And so yesterday he came on out and said it's closed, and now, obviously, I presume Judicial Watch is filing their Freedom of Information Act lawsuit today, but they won't get any documents in time to inform the American public just what a slime one of the candidates for the presidency actually is. But that's what forced Comey's hand. Between the New York Police Department getting ready to go public and the Judicial Watch lawsuit, he had to reopen the case in order to hold off the investigators. All right, let's grab a phone call. Bob in Las Vegas, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Comey is a crook.
Yes.
This whole media, corporate media, is corrupt.
Yes.
I'm fed up, as I was fed up a few weeks ago. I'm fed up, it seems, on a daily basis.
Yep.
But we all owe a debt of gratitude to WikiLeaks. They're doing the job that the corporate media should have done. And even I was watching a program on RT. In fact, they were saying this whole story about Hillary's email to Podesta regarding the funding of ISIS, which Assange stated in the interview, the same source that was funding ISIS was funding Hillary, the Saudis, the Qataris. And this should have been a bombshell on the corporate media, a bombshell. This is the same Saudis that this government is selling $80 billion to $100 billion worth of arms that are presumably going to ISIS through the Saudis.
Or they're going to be used on the civilians of Yemen.
Or they'll be used on the civilians of Yemen. The same Saudis that are funding the Clinton Foundation, and the same Saudis that are that are in the same anti-ISIS coalition, we're told.
Yeah, so everybody's playing a double game here. And don't forget, Saudi Arabia is one of the biggest donors to Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. And they've poured in huge amounts of money. They're trying to buy the United States out from under Israel, and of course Israel's very unhappy about that.
Yeah, I used to think, in fact, in my more naive days, I used to think that Israel was basically controlling this country through their lobbying, which they do, but the Saudis are right up there with the Israelis.
Well, I think the Saudis.
I'm impressed, I have to say.
I think the Saudis have declared war on Israel over who's going to be in charge of the United States, and I'm not sure that I want either of them to win. I want the United States to be under the control of the American people, not just another piece on this global board of empire where we're all going to control covertly. You know, we're back in the same situation they had in the Middle Ages, where the rulers of nations weren't even, you know, members of that nation. They were brought in from, you know, French people were coming in to rule Germany, and Germans were ruling. And you had countries whose royalty didn't even speak the native language. And I mean, it was just absolutely ridiculous, and we're kind of back there again. Anyway, listen, Bob,
Mike, can I just say one thing? You've been saying all along that even if Trump does win, the work isn't over. In fact, it will just begun for the American people, the real owners of this country. I just like to reference a famous quote from 1942, where if Trump wins, this is not the end, it is not even the beginning of the end. It is perhaps the end of the beginning.
Yeah.
That was Churchill.
Yeah, I remember that one.
I believe if Trump wins.
Yeah, it'll be a signal for Americans to stand up and take their country back. Trump can't give it to you. All he can do is help you, and that's what we're going to have to stand shoulder to shoulder with him and take our country back from the oligarchs and just kick them on out, just get them out of this country. Bob, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. We got a lot of news to cover here today. Now then, the corporate media is still trying to protect the official story, and Wired magazine, which you wouldn't think of as being political or biased, actually came out with an article trying to respond to everybody saying, how could you go through 650,000 emails in just 8 days when it took you a year to go through 33,000? And Wired is saying, oh, but we've got computers and they've got search engines, and there's no question they'd be able to go through and just absolutely know what was in the emails. Well, no. And here's the problem. Automated searching only goes so far. Automated searching works if you know exactly what you are searching for. When you're evaluating emails for crimes and corruptions, you may not know what exactly to look for with an automated search, especially if the people writing the emails are using jargon, slang, code words, or metaphors, which we have seen in the WikiLeaks dumps. So an automated search was going to fail. And congratulations, Wired. You just shot your own credibility down flames. You're now on the same level as ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox, and BBC, which stands for British Buggering Children. Now, we're already seeing, you know, I almost feel sorry for Director Comey. I don't. I almost do, but I don't. He did want the job, and he did make this mess himself. But back when he opened the investigation into the emails, he came under criticism from the Democrats. When he let Hillary skate last July, he came under criticism from the Republicans. Then he's forced to reopen the investigation back on the 28th, and he comes under criticism again from the Democrats. And now he's just said we found nothing in an impossibly short time, and he's under criticism from the Republicans and pretty much everybody else in the United States at the same time. And there is already talk that his days as head of the FBI are numbered, regardless of who is declared the winner in tomorrow's election. And by the way, I want to be very clear here. In my mind, there is no question if we were having honest elections, Donald Trump is going to win in a landslide. So we need to stop asking who's going to win tomorrow, because that's a moot question. The real question is, will Hillary Clinton and her people succeed in stealing the election? Because that's really what tomorrow is all about. A last desperate grab by the power elite to hang on to power, to maintain access to your wallet, and unfettered permission to use your children in their wars of conquest. We decided to go ahead and put up a few reminders of the FBI's much storied past. We put up a documentary about the burglary that led to the exposure of the COINTELPRO program. And we put up, I reposted my article on COINTELPRO from years ago. I figure as long as Comey is going to drag the FBI's reputation through the mud, it's time to remind the American people that the FBI has been down there in the mud all along. There are questions as to whether it's actually a constitutional agency. It's described by many people as America's Stasi or Gestapo, and I think that's accurate, and Comey just proved it to everybody. Story coming out of Zero Hedge. I just lost all faith in our deeply corrupt legal system and the rule of law in the U.S. Yeah, that's happening all across the country. Nobody is buying Comey's getting up there yesterday and saying, we've examined 650,000 emails. We spent a whole second on every single email ever since October 28th and know that there's nothing in there of any questionable behavior. And nobody's buying it. If anything, it has provoked more anger and outrage in the American voters. That might actually backflash against Hillary Clinton. Paul Ryan is up there saying, we've had it. Enough of this stuff. It's time to vote for Donald Trump, if for no other reason than to start clearing this corrupted machine out of our capital city. And he's absolutely right. It's time to bring the Clinton era to an end by voting for Donald Trump. This is from Paul Ryan. Okay, let's take two phone calls. Sean in North Carolina. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike. I actually have a question for you. Well, actually, a little bit of advice. Here in North Carolina, you know, it's been a tight race, and I plan on going out there, you know, first thing in the morning, and I'll have my red shirt on. But my question lies within this cheating going on, because I would like to, after I vote, go back to the house, change and go back up there and actually film anything, you know, peculiar that I see going on. But the problem is, from people that I've heard from that have voted early already, they say the places they went had stickers and signs all over the place saying absolutely no filming, no taking pictures.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm kind of, you know, I would love to catch some corruption, but I mean, would it be wise to ignore those and go ahead?
No, because these election workers who are part of the problem will eject you. I mean, there are some states that are arguing that any attempt to thwart election fraud represents a violation of the Voting Rights Act. In other words, Americans have a right to cheat in the elections, is what they're saying. That's how ridiculous this whole thing has gotten. And the problem is the system is built to conceal the fraud, whether it's in those electronic machines, in the tabulation centers. It is set up to steal elections. Now, again, election fraud works to shift a race a few percentage points, but it can't reverse a landslide. That's what happened with Brexit. If Hillary and her people are desperate enough to try and reverse a Donald Trump landslide, everybody's going to know that's what happened. And that could lead to some very unfortunate realities in the streets of America.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be wise to ignore those. Okay.
No, I don't want to see you get thrown in jail. You know, I only have about $2 in my pocket. That's not going to be enough for your bail money.
it's scary. I mean, I'm hearing from the Department of Justice, or not Department of Justice, but from high sources up in the Pentagon that they're going to go ahead and try to prop her up and set her in the White House. And you know, do you think if that happens, do you still see the government being completely paralyzed?
It already is. I mean, everywhere you turn, people are saying this government is clearly corrupt. It's broken. It has failed. It should be fired. This election season especially. They've lost the trust and confidence of the American people. The corporate media is distrusted by 94% of the American population. This is rapidly becoming a government that is so paralyzed by its own corruption and crime, it can't function any longer. Nobody's going to listen to this government. If Hillary steals this election, she may be able to go on in and say, I'm the first president of the United States, but no American's going to listen to her. They're not going to follow her orders. They're not going to obey her agenda, and they're certainly not going to send their kids off to be killed and crippled in her wars of conquest.
Absolutely. It's looking like, you know, if all else fails, it's going to be up to us.
I'm hearing that from so many people. I'm hearing that from so many people. I cannot tell you how afraid that makes me.
Well, every other corner is a dead end, it seems.
Yeah, well, remember what John F. Kennedy said. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. And unfortunately, it looks like we may prove John Kennedy right.
Sounds like a wise statement he made. Thanks, Mike.
All right, thanks a lot. We're going to switch over to Peter in Los Angeles. Aloha, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. I don't know if I've ever told you before, but I'm a huge college sports fan. I'm looking at ESPN right now, and there's something that's going on the bottom that says fans arrested for defacing LSU logo. Now, they're making arrests for that, yet you know, they can beat up Trump supporters. Hillary can steal thousands of secrets. They can lie, you know, and nothing happens with that. But they're arresting somebody, you know, who defaces the LSU logo. But it just right. I wanted to ask a question, though, Mike, and that is, you used to talk about, and I'm wondering if it changed or whatever, about a private company that was a consortium of some of the really large media companies that was the actual ballot counter for the elections. Is that still, do you know who counts them?
Well, that was Voters News Service, and they're constantly changing. Well, that's what they're called colloquially. They keep changing their name. They keep changing their location. They're trying very hard to stay out of the public eye. But the important point to remember about that is our national elections are counted by this privately owned company owned by major corporate media, which in turn is under the control of the Central Intelligence Agency. There is no government agency providing oversight for the counting of our national elections. There's no civilian oversight allowed. The system is designed to be completely opaque. You go into the booth, you push a button, the next day they tell you who your new masters are, and you're supposed to just go along with that.
Well, you know, Mike, when you talk about Voters News Service or whatever iteration it is now, and you think that, you know, CNN has been caught giving, you know, they've all been caught giving major money, the corporations themselves.
Yes.
Then the scores of actual reporters who have been openly favoring, and in WikiLeaks, and fingered by WikiLeaks for favoring Clinton, and then the fact that they own this blatantly biased group of companies that showed their bias just blatantly.
They have been caught changing the voting results in the past, and nobody will do anything about it. It's like the old statement about none dare call it treason, or rather, treason doth never prosper. Why? Because if it prospers, none dare call it treason. You could say the same thing about election fraud. Okay? Election fraud does not prosper, because when it prospers, none dare call it election fraud.
Well, when people say to me, is this vote rigged, I say, do you think the media was rigged? Do you think the media was biased? And, you know, since there are 1,000 WikiLeaks that point to it, and contributions and everything else.
I'm going to have to put you on hold. We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're talking with Peter in Los Angeles. And Peter, for all these people running around saying, oh, it's impossible to rig the American elections, we have this most wonderful election system. First of all the Western democracies, the only country with a more dishonest voting system than the United States is Panama. And OSCE did a survey of perception of election systems, and the only country that was seen as more crooked in their elections than the United States was Mexico. We're down there right at the very bottom. But for anybody who says, no, there's never been a stolen election in this country, what do you think Watergate was all about? Richard Nixon stole his second term in office. That's what it was all about. And so, yes, stolen elections are a reality in the United States of America. Get over it.
Mike, I think Richard Nixon learned his lesson because the 60 election was stolen from him. But the other thing, though, I just want to reiterate: if Voters News Service or the media are the ones counting the votes, and they have proven to be giving millions and millions of dollars, and their unqualified support to Hillary, that's a real problem.
It's a conflict of interest.
That's a problem. Yes, and then one more thing. The Constitution with a free press, I think, assumes that you can't have an election without a free and unbiased press, and obviously that's no longer the case.
No, it's no longer the case. But back when the Constitution was written, newspapers were all small, separate businesses. There was no such thing as radio. The telegraph company was handled as a public utility. They just carried the news, and they didn't impose a bias. And we had laws. As corporations came along, there were laws that preserved diversity of opinion in the media. No one entity could own more than one newspaper, more than one radio station in any given market. But starting with the first invasion of Iraq, the U.S. basically threw all those laws out, and they went to the big corporate media and said, if you will embed your reporters with our troops and report the war the way we want, we will allow you to start buying up your small competitors and building these giant media empires like Clear Channel and the rest of it. And that was where media was turned from being a provider of information to the American people into the government's propaganda ministry.
Yeah, it's nothing but rigged, and I was bringing this up to people this morning, and nobody's really aware of that Voters News Service or whatever it's called, or that Spanish company. It's just nobody really knows.
No, they're not supposed to. They're not supposed to. You're supposed to go into that little voting booth, push a button, and then just rest assured you'll be told who your new master is the next day.
By the way, there's one more thing to add. It just came out that somebody was I believe it was CNN, was again found coaching, sending the questions or soliciting questions from the DNC to be asked by the debate by the moderators. So the DNC was actually supplying questions to CNN.
Yeah, to use on Donald Trump and everything. That was apparently coming from Wolf Blitzer. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit. Anyway, Peter, anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you, Michael.
All right, thank you. We're going to switch over to Patricia in Florida. Aloha, Patricia. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Thank you very much for all you do. I'm most concerned and riled up about this. We know what may happen. Do we have plans? The whole country is going to be up in arms, and that'll make a vacuum, and we need to have plans with Donald Trump as to what we're going to do, a plan of action. Because if what we fear the most happens, we have to have a plan. No one's ever mentioned that yet.
Well, yeah, we have. Because, as I said, if Hillary steals this election tomorrow, it's not a legitimate legal government, and at that point, you just ignore them. You refuse to fill out the paperwork. You refuse to put the stickers on your car. You refuse to pay that government's bills for its out-of-control spending, and you certainly refuse to send your children off to be killed and crippled in that government's wars. I mean, this is how Gandhi got the British out of India. Everybody just stopped listening to them, and the government couldn't function.
That was based on the fact of the goodwill of the British.
You overestimate the British. No, the British left because they couldn't turn a profit in India anymore. That's why they left. It wasn't their goodwill. All right, Patricia, thanks. We're going to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And before we go back to the phone lines here, quick story. Chaffetz is out there saying, of course, there are still unanswered questions in the Clinton email server probe. If she's innocent, then tell everybody to stop pleading the Fifth and asking for immunity deals and go to Congress and tell them the truth. It's very obvious something is being hidden, especially when you have the director of the FBI last July literally went down the list of Title 18 violations Hillary Clinton and her people have committed and then turned around and said, well, we don't think any reasonable prosecutor would bother bringing charges here because they don't want to wind up dead in Fort Marcy Park. That's it. There's a cover-up. And if the Clintons aren't going to come clean, if the FBI is not going to do a proper investigation, then you're free to imagine the worst possible interpretation of what's going on behind those scenes. And I am still convinced the secret they're all trying to protect about that email server is that Hillary Clinton was replaying the 1996 Chinagate scandal in which U.S. secrets were transferred to foreign interests in exchange for donations. They did it back in 1996. They skated on the investigation back then. No reason to think Hillary wasn't doing exactly the same now, using her weak email server to deliver the goods and her so-called charitable foundation to collect and launder the money. Even the U.S. government is now acknowledging there were at least 5 foreign governments got into her email server. The hacker Guccifer said, to his knowledge, it was at least 10. And maybe they didn't hack in. Maybe they were given a password to get in. All right, back to the phones. Ed in Florida, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Good afternoon, Mike. I want to know if you've ever had Patrick Buchanan on your show before.
I'd love to have him on the show. I was a big supporter and a big fan. And by the way, he's one of the people who got royally cheated by Voters News Service in the Iowa caucuses, where they literally shaved something like 13% off of his caucus numbers from Iowa to Voters News Service. It all disappeared. And when VNS was called on it, they said, these are the numbers we've got, and these are the numbers we're going with.
I've read most of his books, but the hardest book for me to read was Suicide of a Superpower. Came out in 2012.
Yes.
I mean, every book before that, we had Republicans in office. You maybe hoped things wouldn't be so bleak as Pat had predicted, but I've always said he's always been a John the Baptist crying in the wilderness. But there's just 2 sentences, if I can just read from his preface, that just really hit hard, and I just couldn't finish the book from that point on.
Okay, real quick, though.
Okay, it says, civilizations die from suicide, not by murder. And so it is. We are the prodigal sons who squandered their inheritance. But, unlike the prodigal son, we can't go home again.
No, we can't.
And if Hillary Clinton does win tomorrow...
Okay, first of all, let's get something straight. There is no way Hillary Clinton can win tomorrow. She's going to steal it. She's going to try and steal it, and she may succeed.
Absolutely, I stand corrected.
Let's stop using the word win, because we know that's inoperative at this point.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, I got it. Carol, yeah.
Whoops. Okay, I'm sorry. We're on the line here. Let's see. Let's switch over to D in Michigan. Aloha, D. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, love the show. First-time caller, so pardon any stumbling I might do. Just wanted to call and let everybody know in Michigan that I'm sure everybody knows that Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are going to be in Grand Rapids area tonight, or today and tonight. I got texts from friends of mine who are police officers that are working the rally, and they're saying that there is nobody there. Meanwhile, Trump's having a rally at 11 p.m. in Grand Rapids, and the lines are blocks and blocks long. So I think it's wise for everybody in Michigan not to believe the hype that Hillary's even close in Michigan.
Yeah, well, you know, they're saying she's close because the dead can vote, but they can't actually show up at the rallies.
Exactly. I had one more question for you. I'll get off the line. Are you familiar with Bill Sill? He did the Wizard of Oz documentary about the moneymakers.
Yes.
Money changers.
Yes.
I was watching. I caught a snippet he did on YouTube where it was George Soros. He was doing an interview with a nice, attractive young female reporter, and he was basically bragging to the fact. He said that Trump will win a landslide, but he's going to lose on the electoral side because George Soros has financial elements in the electoral side. So he basically just came out and admitted that they're going to steal the election. I mean, how this man is not in jail is ridiculous to me. Well,
certainly we don't need the Electoral College anymore, and in the blueprint for the New America, there certainly isn't one. The system is streamlined to be a direct participatory democracy without all these little filters and safety, things in the way to allow the political elites to shift things the way they want to go. When this country was set up, there was no such thing as a superdelegate. That was actually, believe it or not, the superdelegate system was invented following Richard Nixon's stealing of his second term in office, because the political parties wanted a way to override a popular vote that put a losing candidate into the nomination. In that case, George McGovern. But, of course, like everything else that's started for a good reason, it's very quickly mutated to a bad reason. And we now have lawyers for the Democratic National Committee and Debbie Wasserman Schultz openly admitting in a court of law that the Democratic Party threw the nomination to Hillary Clinton. They stole it away from Bernie Sanders. And that's not what the party leadership is supposed to do. The party leadership is supposed to do what the party rank and file want.
Right. Is there any kind of penalty or fine or anything for an electorate to not follow the will of the people? I mean, the fine is basically nothing, right? So they basically just do whatever they want.
Well, no. The way you find them is you stop being a member of that party. And by the way, membership in these two traditional parties is in decline. People are just walking away and saying, I'm not giving you money, I'm not calling myself a Republican or a Democrat, I'm going to say no affiliation or Green Party or Libertarian, or I'm looking at anarchy as very attractive right now. But in point of fact, the Republicans and Democrats do not have the lock on the American population anymore. In fact, I think the non-aligned population is now higher in percentage than either the GOP or the Democrats.
Right. Gotcha. Well, that's all I got, Mike. I love the show, and keep it up.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Tom in Utah. Aloha, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
I've been desperately trying to get people to understand another little enterprise of the Clintons. In 1993, Hillary actually was the agent behind it, but Bill Clinton passed what's called the National Child Welfare Act. And then in 1997, they enhanced that with an act called the Adoption and Safe Families Act. What's interesting is these two acts exploit a action taken by the friends of, Henry Kissinger back in 1974 and 1976. And what it does is it sets up families to have the state come in, lift their children. It's a perverse incentive to pull children away from the family and the home, put them in state care, and then at the same time, when a child is put into state custody, they become a drafting on Social Security. In other words, if you get a child into state care, they'll pull the title for funding that the Clintons provided, but then also you'll draft support money from their Social Security, and in many cases they will classify the child as special needs. Of course, when you rip a child away from its family,
you get additional funding. No, it was just like the witch hunters in medieval Europe. They were paid to see witches, so they went out and saw witches everywhere. The Child Protective Services all across the nation during the 1990s were very abusive. The more children they could take away from the families, the bigger their budgets became. They were financially incentivized to rip families apart, and this was all in accord with Hillary Clinton's philosophy that she put in It Takes a Village, that the regular nuclear family really should not be allowed to endure, that the children really do ultimately belong to the state, and the state should raise them and condition them and program them and propagandize them to serve the state, and the parents really, outside of popping the little rugrat out in the beginning, shouldn't have anything to do. And they literally set up that Child Protective Services and financially incentivized it to rip families apart for no reason. And it reached a point where it finally collapsed because so many of these state agencies were being sued for constitutional violations that they had to be shut down to reduce the liability to the state budget. I remember there was a big stink down in San Diego where they had a Child Protective Services department down there that was being run by all these liberal feminists who were out there saying all men are child abusers, and they literally engaged in constitutional violations to take fathers out of homes, and they got hit with so many civil rights lawsuits. Finally, San Diego just had to shut the whole thing down, saying we can't afford to continue to pay these lawsuits, for your political agenda.
When did you say they got shut down?
I don't remember exactly. It was in the late 90s, and this was when I was...
They're alive and well now.
They set up a new department. They set up a new department to replace it, to do what they're going to do, but without blatantly violating the constitutional rights of fathers. Because that was a big problem in the 1990s. I mean, they were sending innocent men to jail for rape. A National Organization of Women was out there saying, don't you dare demand a DNA test. You just take the word of the woman at face value. The same thing Hillary's been saying this campaign season, except, of course, for those trailer trash sluts who accused her husband.
Well, talking about trailer trash, that was one of the mechanisms that was set in place in 1976. Kissinger and his friends took the entire manufactured mobile home industry, put them under HUD, and I identified a poisoning issue that sets these families up for this situation.
Are you talking about the formaldehyde? Because we know that was a big problem following Hurricane Katrina.
I was a scientist taken down to New Orleans, and I identified that issue with them, but I had also identified a poisoning issue that affects every family living in a manufactured or mobile home, and they're generally poor, or more humble. And curiously, a greater percentage of them have dealings with Child Protective Services because the children will fail with this poisoning in the environment, and the parents will be accused of abuse and neglect, like you're referring to there in San Diego.
Well, we've seen that as well. Kids who are being killed by vaccine adjuvants, and what do? They accuse the parents of shaken baby syndrome. Anyway, listen, Tom, it's an interesting topic, but we're short on time, and we got a lot of callers waiting.
Well, let me reference your website.
Okay.
Go to manufacturedmadness.com or manufacturedmurder.com, a.k.a. infanticideusa.com. And there are 34 million individuals living under this evil program put in place in 1974.
Okay, hang on a second.
By the Quinn.
Okay, manufacturedmurder.com. The domain is up for sale. Okay, Manufactured Madness. I'm looking at it. I will post it to What Really Happened. Thank you very much for the phone call, Tom. We're going to switch to James in Pennsylvania. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Okay. Bye.
Hi. Hello? James?
Hello?
Yeah, we're on the air. What's on your mind?
I was just made aware this morning that apparently Janet Butch Reno has passed away.
Yes.
Did you hear about that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, remember when the events of Waco involving Hillary Clinton and the murder of the Brad Stevenians?
Yes.
Okay. Long before that, Janet Reno was responsible for the Miami-Dade County. She was a prosecutor against my Ethiopian Zion Coptic Church. which is the cannabis Christian church globally.
Okay.
And so I got a long-standing vendetta against Janet Reno and her shenanigans. But now, I wonder, do you think that Janet Reno being in cahoots with as Secretary General and the Clinton administration, when the Branch Davidians were investigating the events at Waco and the Buffalo Air cocaine smuggling events that the Clintons were involved with, do you think that maybe somebody whacked Janet Reno too?
No, I mean she was old and she was retired and she wasn't really a player anymore. But I do know that Janet Reno figures very prominently in the book Vote Scam by the Collier Brothers. That was about vote fraud in the pre-Diebold era. And it basically shows this election fraud has been going on a long time, but apparently Janet Reno, the reason she became Attorney General was she was instrumental in helping Bill Clinton become president in his first term by means fair and foul, as it were. Okay?
Well, yeah, the Branch Davidians were gathering evidence against the Clinton, Helena, Arkansas drug smuggling ring. And that was probably one of the reasons why the Waco incident was provoked and ultimately dealt with by the way the Clintonistas like to do business.
Well, that may actually make sense because David Koresh's predecessor, the guy who was leading the Branch Davidian compound before that, was up to his neck in drugs. They had a meth lab right on the property. And when Koresh finally succeeded in gaining control of the church, the first thing he did was he called the local sheriff's department and said, there's a meth lab on the property. I'm now in charge. I want you to come and remove it. And if his predecessor was tangled up with this whole Iran-Contra drug distribution network, then no doubt David Koresh was sitting on a landmine of, or rather a gold mine of evidence that could not be allowed to become public, and that may be one of the reasons they just burned the place to the ground.
Yeah, imagine that.
Imagine that.
Yeah, well, anyways, I just wanted to, make sure you were informed of that and that others were too. But, it's all this political. I mean, the biggest drug smugglers on the planet are the CIA and its government.
Absolutely.
The United States government.
Absolutely. They're up to their necks in it. Heroin from Vietnam, heroin from Afghanistan, cocaine from Central America, and the money just flows and it shapes our politics. It's prohibition all over again. All right, James, I got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going to take one more phone call, then we're going to close the phone lines for a while because I got a bunch of news to get on out here. Rick in Fort Lauderdale, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Sir, always a pleasure. Just a request for the benefit of everyone that we remember to wear red tomorrow so that we counteract the vote fraud. If we show very high numbers of people voting wearing red, voting for Trump, maybe that will chase away the evil spirits a little bit.
That would be nice. That would be nice indeed.
It seems to be something that's taking place predominantly on social media, but it's got a big following of people wearing red. So I don't know if your audience, the Rivero Rangers, who want to try to make sure we wear red or get the word out via whatever social media that we all use to tell everyone, show up wearing red. And,
everybody can spread that all over social media. I'm looking at a picture of the Sarasota rally for Donald Trump, and there's a lot of red out there, and it's not even Election Day yet.
Yeah, that's great, because then they can't say, well, if we can confirm our vote in red, maybe it'll be harder for them to pull off some crazy fictitious numbers.
That was the idea, and it started with the paper T, and then it sort of went from there to the much simpler solution: just wear red. Wear red if you are voting for Donald Trump, and it's going to make it obvious to everybody around you what the reality is on the ground, and that's going to make it much more difficult for the corporate media to come in and say, you didn't see all those red shirts. Hillary Clinton won. Really, you didn't see any Trump supporters out there. But you know what's going to go on? If Hillary steals this election, it's not going to be the end of it. Everybody's going to be talking with each other and saying, I don't know hardly anybody who voted for Hillary Clinton. The only person I know who's voting for Hillary Clinton is suffering brain damage right now. You know, over in the amusement parks, you know, over those amusement parks where there's that little yardstick and it says you have to be this tall to go on this ride. I think we need those in the voting booths saying your brain has to be this big or larger to be allowed to vote. I think we need that.
Well, that'll be great. Well, thanks, Mike. Maybe we can keep repeating that throughout the course of the show, just in case people turn in a little bit late. You know, the more the better.
Absolutely. And again, you can just, everybody, hit your social media tonight and remind all your fellow Trump supporters to wear red tomorrow. And I've already got my red shirt all set to go. I didn't wear it today because I didn't want to do laundry tonight. All righty, so we're going to close the phone lines for a little bit, and we're going to get into some stories. Now, the Washington Post has uncovered 1,100 hidden foreign Clinton cash donations. And this is part of the problem with the fact that the Clinton Foundation has these satellite offices. One is in Canada, one is in Europe. And they will pull together donations from sources, and they'll send them through as a single lump, listing the source as the satellite office. So there's no record of where it originally came from. So the corruption is continuing nonstop. We got to take a break for our top of the hour station identification. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And I guess we must be having an impact because Hillary's tantrum squad is still pounding on my server as hard as they can. And by the way, do you remember when we were being told there's going to be terror attacks? Al-Qaeda will strike on Monday. And hasn't happened. And I noticed that one of the predicted locations for the terror attack was somewhere in Texas. And so the first thing that occurred to me was the IRS office in Dallas, which is actually looking into whether or not the Clinton Foundation actually qualifies as a tax-exempt nonprofit. And obviously, if the IRS were to come down and say, they don't meet the requirements, that would be one heck of a huge tax bill. Now then, moving on here. One of the reasons the IRS may be looking askance at the Clinton Foundation, according to a story over in hangthebankers.com, Chelsea Clinton paid for her spectacular wedding and her lavish lifestyle with funds from the Clinton Foundation. How do you justify that? We're a charitable foundation. Well, our daughter needs charity, and we're just going to pay for her wedding and all the rest of that. And there we go. Now then. More stuff coming out of WikiLeaks today. Remember that Craigslist ad that was put on out, supposedly, come to work for the Trump organization. You have to be young, beautiful, gorgeous, and, willing to put up with nonsense. And it was a parody, and everybody knew it was a parody, but still it was used to make Donald Trump look bad. Latest WikiLeaks revelation, yes, this came from the Hillary Clinton campaign. They're also confirming that it was a campaign strategy to try and link Donald Trump to Vladimir Putin. They had no factual basis for it whatsoever. It's just a campaign lie. Now, in another WikiLeaks revelation, their communications director, Jennifer Palmieri, admits donors to the Clinton Foundation did expect favors for their money. They weren't being charitable. They weren't being generous. They knew they were putting money into the foundation, and they expected favors to come back. Pay for play does not get any more obvious than this. They referred to it as bad intentions. The donors had bad intentions. That's in the emails, courtesy of WikiLeaks. All righty, now then. More revelations of collusion between the corporate media and the DNC. Apparently, DNC staffers prepared CNN anchors Wolf Blitzer and Jake Tapper for their interviews with Donald Trump. In other words, they were going to interview Donald Trump. The Democrats were giving them the questions to ask Donald Trump, the gotchas. We're going to do a gotcha. We're going to get you, by golly. And apparently CNN was also asking for advice from the Democrats regarding an appearance by Ted Cruz. Now, here's something I'd like to point out. CNN has fired Donna Brazile for conspiring with the DNC, giving them the debate questions ahead of time. They should fire Wolf Blitzer as well. And if they don't, it means NBC is racist and sexist. So come on, NBC, sauce for the goose, sauce for the gander. If you're going to fire Donna Brazile, you should fire Wolf Blitzer. By the way, 50,000 released emails so far from WikiLeaks. Not a single email about how to help the American people or the American nation. All 50,000 emails, plus 100% are all about self-interest, getting more money, getting more power, getting more control. That's quite revealing right there. Now, up in Michigan, Project Veritas is doing what they do so well. They're going on out with their hidden cameras, and they have made multiple videos. They were able to go on into Michigan and obtain ballots in the name of top state and city officials. They just went on in and said, I've lost my ballot and I don't have my ID with me. I'm the mayor of this town. Can I have a ballot? And the election worker said, sure, here you go. Now, one of the Project Veritas people, in a full burqa, was able to go to one of these voter registration places, and it was actually offered a ballot in Huma Abedin's name. I mean, that's how completely out of control it is. This came from an election official handing this undercover journalist in a full burqa Huma Abedin's ballot. It's a joke. Our election system is a joke. It's designed to allow fraud. We're going to do a shout-out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. And there we go. Rampant voter fraud favoring Dems caught in the swing states across the U.S. We've talked about some of this before, but we're going to go over the highlights again. Got a lady out in California, had a huge stack of mail on her front porch, went on out and found 83 ballots with different names, all with her address on it. Called the police, no big deal. Called the elections board, it's a glitch. There's nothing serious here. Nobody wants to be shown any of the evidence of massive election fraud. You would think the Department of Health and Human Services would be interested at the idea that there might be 83 people living in this one little tiny house. Down in Florida, 2 women have been arrested for vote fraud. One was faking voter registrations. That's been a big, big problem. Another one in Miami-Dade was opening and looking at the ballots, which they're not supposed to do. And anytime she saw a place where people hadn't expressed a preference in voting, she'd fill it in for them. Over in Riverside, California, their voter database system's been hacked into. Voter registrations are being changed or deleted. Same thing with Arizona and Illinois. Over in Virginia, the dead are registered to vote. That one was exposed when a recently deceased individual got a thank you note for registering to vote, and his family was saying, what's going on here? Now, over the weekend, there was a big kerfuffle at Donald Trump's rally in Reno, Nevada. There was a disturbance that resulted in the Secret Service rushing Donald Trump off the stage. And it involved an individual that had a Republicans Against Trump t-shirt and caused a ruckus. It turns out this individual is a known Clinton operative. His name surfaces multiple times in the Podesta leaked emails. And at one point, supposedly, he had a gun. Now, this part is really grayed on over. The corporate media is saying there was no gun. It was a false alarm. We're getting emails from people who were actually there who insist they saw a gun, but it's being downplayed. But if there was a gun, then this appears to be the third attempt on Donald Trump's life. Because Toward the first of the year, there was that mysterious malfunction on his campaign aircraft, had to do an emergency landing. Then in the summer, there was that guy who grabbed a gun from one of the security guards, tried to get a shot off at Donald. This may have been the third attempt. Now, to nobody's surprise, and this is coming out of Paul Craig Roberts, the U.S. public now lacks confidence in our elections. We're seeing all kinds of polls all over the place where the American people do not think our elections are honest or trustworthy. And that is a real problem for the stealers of elections, because those who steal elections have to have a population that trusts the announced result, or the game is all over. The jig is up, and that's where they are right now. If Hillary comes out ahead tomorrow, nobody's going to be saying she won it. They're all going to be saying she stole it because of all the election fraud that has surfaced so far. Now, we put up a link to a story from freedomworks.org, How to Report Voter Fraud, a crash course. They tell you what to look for, and in addition, they have at the bottom of the article a list of phone numbers for every single state where you can call and report election fraud. I don't know where the numbers go to, whether they go to anybody who's capable of doing any action or they're just keeping a tabulation, but at least it's something that we can do. And if you see election fraud and you can document it, send it here. We'll post it on WhatReallyHappened.com. Now, meanwhile, over at Twitter, they're now admitting that they have, in fact, been censoring anti-Hillary tweets. Their justification for it is that any tweets critical of Hillary Clinton represents voter suppression. No, voter suppression is when you tell somebody you can't vote. Telling people why they should not vote for a candidate is not voter suppression, it's politics, it's campaigning. And Twitter is not censoring anti-Trump tweets on the claim that it represents voter suppression. And it's just another reminder, the entire corporate elite, including the online social media corporations, are firmly in Hillary Clinton's back pocket. Let's see. Trump getting massive crowd turnout today. I got some pictures from that. Still doing a rally at midnight in Leesburg, Virginia, looking at the pictures. It is everywhere you go. Trump's rallies are sellouts of sports arenas. Hillary can't even fill restaurants right now. Hillary is now actually campaigning in what used to be considered solid blue states because they're starting to swing toward Trump. Even Fox News was saying a lot of states that used to be blue on the map, they're now in play. They're now the new battleground states. Now, remember when I said that Hillary Clinton is just saying whatever she thinks the audience in front of her wants to hear to get their votes and their money? Tim Kaine is doing exactly the same thing. Tim Kaine gave a speech entirely in Spanish to a Hispanic audience, celebrating the time when whites will become a minority in the United States of America. Ooh, those white people, we don't want them around anymore. We know that the United States has traditionally been a part of Mexico, just like the Sudetenland was traditionally a part of Germany, and Crimea traditionally a part of Ukraine, and so forth and so on. But they're actually out there with this war on white people, meaning war on traditional Americans. Those who've been in this country, those who are citizens, were born here, multi-generational families. They're declaring war on us. They want us gone so they can open the borders and flood the nation with people from around the world to erase the borders, to erase our sense of history, culture, and place. Now, something very telling may have just happened. Tomorrow night, Donald Trump and Mike Pence are going to be flying all over the eastern seaboard, attending election night events from Sarasota, Florida, all the way up to New York. Hillary's having just one party at the Jacob Javits Center, and they had planned for a fireworks show lasting 2 minutes over the Hudson River when the election results went final. And they got permission from the Coast Guard to have it. It was all set to go. Everybody's saying, oh, well, she's obviously confident she's going to win. Apparently, they have canceled that plan. Clinton's camp last Thursday called the fireworks company and said, we're not going to do this. Oh, I wonder what that means. All righty. Fountain Valley man arrested after stealing a large pro-Trump sign and then running away. And this isn't the usual thing where some Hillary Clinton supporter sneaks on to private property in the dead of night when nobody's there and makes off with a sign. This was a 23-year-old guy, ran up to a Trump-waving group on a street corner and grabbed their largest sign, a 7-foot by 4-foot banner that said, "Make America Great Again," and then he took off running southbound on Bristol Street. The police caught him and arrested him and returned the sign. And this is what the Democratic Party has become because of Hillary Clinton. The party of the petty thieves. The party of the vandals. The party of the election riggers. The party of the computer hackers. Anybody who's been a Democrat for much of their lives has to be looking at this and being appalled at what their public image is being dragged down to. And that may be one of the reasons so many Democrats are going to vote for Donald Trump. Democrats who've been Democrats for a lot of years, they're proud of that. They want to be seen as the party of the people. And they look out and they see that the majority of the American people want Donald Trump, and Hillary Clinton's campaign has warped the Democratic Party into criminals. Now, apparently up in Boston, somebody spray painted graffiti on a wall, "Kill your local Trump supporter." So we can add the labels terrorist and vandal to the new public image of the Democratic Party, courtesy of Hillary Clinton. Now, the Democrats aren't the only ones whose public image is in trouble. Certainly the FBI's public face is down in the mud, as it deserves to be. But the other one, of course, is journalism. Regardless of the outcome of tomorrow's election, the corporate media in this country has destroyed itself. Nobody listens to them. Nobody trusts them anymore. This election has disgraced the entire profession of journalism by its openly blatant support for Hillary Clinton. That's not what we demand from media. We demand objective information so that we can choose our leaders, not a constant 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, high-pressure sales campaign. I look at some of the network news coverage, if you will, of Hillary Clinton, and it comes across like those pitchmen on TV who are selling OxyClean or ShamWow or the rubber thing that pours over cracks and makes a boat made of screen float. And they all have that loud voice and the gestures and saying, "You have to listen to what we're telling you." And that's what the corporate media is starting to look like more and more. The Washington Post hit a new low using pictures of Hitler and Mussolini to describe Donald Trump, when it's Hillary and the Democrats that are acting like the fascists. Hillary even has her own brown shirt squad, like the one who spray painted "Kill your local Trump supporter" up on the wall in Boston. And setting a new low, you're not going to believe this one. This was in the New York Times. It's an editorial saying that the way to go away from all this crooked election and don't know what's really going on and all the confusion every 4 years over parties is that maybe America should consider a monarchy. And, of course, we're going to have Queen Hillary. We'll just start with her. I guess that's what they're trying to sell. Hillary's not going to be happy stealing the presidency. She wants to be Queen of America for life and ultimately Queen of the world. Now, because of all this media pandering, the election fraud, the lies, the corruption, polls are showing 62% of voters say they feel less proud of America because of this election. I know that Hillary is out there trying to counter Donald Trump's slogan of Make America Great Again by saying, I think America's great right now. We can make it greater. But the people aren't with her on that. Americans are realizing we're not a great nation anymore. And I still keep going back to that wonderful speech in HBO's The Newsroom on the season opener when Will McAvoy is out there saying America's not the greatest nation on earth any longer. And you're not going to solve it until you acknowledge that. You have to admit there's a problem. Hillary doesn't want to admit there's a problem, which means she won't deal with it. Donald Trump admits there's a problem. Our nation's greatness has fallen. It's time to get it back. We'll be right back after these commercials. Hello, I'm America. Welcome back to our show here, and we're going to move over to the war zones, emphasis on the plural, because there are some very alarming developments going on in other parts of the world. You're not getting reports about them on the corporate media, which is totally obsessed with selling you Hillary Clinton in the next 24 hours and convincing you that electing Donald Trump will bring about the end of the universe as we know it. NATO has put 300,000 troops on high alert amid fears of all-out confrontation with Russia. And the Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, is saying the Allied nations are building up to deter a mounting threat from Moscow. Moscow isn't threatening anybody. They're ginning up this new world war out of thin air. Russia hasn't done a single thing. Do you see Russian carrier groups tooling around the Gulf of Mexico? Or Baja? Do you see Russian drones over our territory? Do you see Russia going into countries where it's not wanted, not invited? I think this rapid buildup is a warning sign here, and I've been saying for quite a while. If Donald Trump pulls off a miracle tomorrow, and the American people are able to overcome the election fraud, the people who want war with Russia are going to start it before he can even take office. And it looks like they're moving all the assets into position to just say, it's war with Russia. We're going to go to war with Russia. It'll be fun. We're going to have a really good time. They're not paying for it. Their children aren't fighting in it. They've already got their bunkers if somebody makes a mistake and an atomic bomb falls. But they want their war. They know they'll get it with Hillary stealing the White House. Donald Trump doesn't want war. He's already said he wants to go back to being friends with Russia and China, peace through commerce, trade, assuming we can come up with something anybody else wants to buy. So they're getting ready to start World War III for real before Trump can take office, figuring that once it's there, Trump won't be able to stop it. And he may fool them. He's not a career politician. He's not obsessed with his place in history, his historical legacy. His historical legacy is written in buildings all across this country. He doesn't care about the history books. Donald Trump could get into office, and the first thing he does is pick up the phone, calls Vladimir Putin and whoever's running China these days, say, you know, this is a stupid idea. And I'm going to fire everybody in the government who was in favor of this idea. I suggest you do the same, and we just quit. Just pull the plug on this thing. Putin will agree immediately. China will take a little more schmoozing. But I think that's why we're seeing this rapid buildup. Because they're really going to try and provoke war with Russia, especially if Trump wins the popular vote tomorrow. Now, over in Ukraine, they're showing signs of collapse. Remember, Mikhail Saakashvili used to be president of Georgia, and then he got kicked out of that job, and then Poroshenko made him the mayor of Odessa. Well, the governor of Odessa, Saakashvili has now quit. Apparently things are so bad he can't handle it there anymore. Let's talk about the economy. People tend to vote with their wallets. That's actually a pretty good basis for voting. How is your life being affected by the candidate's promises? And right now, in 96% of the districts for the U.S. House of Representatives, meaning 96% of America, poverty has increased, the standard of living has declined. Those other 4% of the House districts are the money junkie neighborhoods, where things are just great. We're doing really well. We just want things to go on the way they are now, where we're getting richer and richer. Now, Tesco Bank has had to freeze online payments. Oh, we got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm America. Welcome back to the show. And earlier I misspoke. I was talking about Wolf Blitzer and Donna Brazile. And the network they work for is CNN, not NBC. Somebody says I said NBC in the slip of the tongue here. But again, the same thing applies. If they fired Donna Brazile for coordinating with the DNC, which was inappropriate, they should do the same thing to Wolf Blitzer. We're going to take a phone call right now, then we're going to close the phone lines again. Jerry in Chicago, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. Thanks a lot for taking my call. You mentioned earlier if Trump doesn't get the popular vote and Hillary steals the election with the Electoral College, who are the members of the Electoral College?
The electors are chosen from within the individual states. They're basically another form of delegate. We're actually hearing from places like Washington State that there are Electoral College delegates that are already digging in their heels and saying that they can't bring themselves to vote for Hillary Clinton. So it may be a faction fight even in the Electoral College. But I think if Donald Trump has a landslide tomorrow in the popular vote and the Electoral College tries to reverse it, that could trigger a revolution. The American people are right on edge, and I'm sure the powers that be are sitting up there saying, "Oh, those people, they'll never do anything. We can do whatever we want to them. We'll pee down their backsides and tell them it's rain, and they'll say yes, sir." And history is full of rulers who made that mistake of taking that one step too far and misjudging the tolerance of their own people. King Charles I of Great Britain comes to mind, wound up being beheaded. Ceausescu, machine-gunned on Romanian national TV. Mussolini, hanged and machine-gunned, no TV. Louis XVI, beheaded. It does happen. Kings get killed when they make really bad mistakes. And I'm hoping that cooler heads are going to prevail if Donald Trump wins that popular vote by a landslide tomorrow, that they realize this is it. This is the end of the Clinton-Bush duocracy, and the ringleaders should head for nations that don't have extradition. Farewell and good riddance.
Oh, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I wonder how they would feel if they look out their window on Wednesday morning and see people that know their names and show up with pitchforks and ropes and torches and everything else like that. And you know what? You've made a mistake. You voted for the wrong person.
Well, I think the names of the electors are a matter of public record, and maybe they should be a little bit more scared of the American people than they are of their political backers.
Okay, well, that's all I wanted to ask, man. Thanks a lot.
Right.
Have a great show.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to switch over to John in Barbados. Aloha, John. Welcome back to the show. What's on your mind today?
Within the media monopolies competing with one another. On the one hand, you have the Murdoch Group, which...
Hello? We have something... Is John there?
We're having trouble connecting. Hang on.
Okay, well, let's go to another story here while we're waiting for John in Barbados to get on back here. So we were talking about Tesco Bank has halted all online payments, and they're saying that some 20,000 customers had money removed from their accounts. Now, we have seen in the past banks that hit a cash crisis blame it on computer hackers. So we don't know exactly what's going on here. Tesco may have hit a cash crisis. There may have genuinely been a hack that emptied 20,000 customers' bank accounts. So far, they're not blaming it on Russia, which, of course, will be the next thing. Meanwhile, the Immigrations and Custom Enforcement is now out there saying that if Hillary Clinton steals the election tomorrow, her open borders policy will lead to a cataclysm of violent cartels and brutal transnational gangs having open access to U.S. communities. And they're absolutely right. Now, down in Texas, they've had another very tragic incident. There was apparently a gentleman who was an illegal immigrant. He'd already been deported once from the U.S. for assaulting his wife. Apparently grabbed a 10-year-old girl from a Texas church, killed her, and then threw the body into the well. So this is what this open borders policy is bringing us. And Donald Trump is right. We as a nation have a right to control our borders, to decide that those who want to come in here should be those who will benefit our society and not just open the door to MS-13 or the street gangs or the drug dealers or anything. Over in Switzerland, their population is shifting hard right. They've had enough of this open borders refugee situation. They want the migrants out. Germany, which apparently has had as much of Angela Merkel's open door policy as they can take, is now planning to intercept refugees in the Mediterranean and just turn them around, send them back to Africa. You're not our problem anymore. This whole globalist new world order, blur all the populations of Earth together so they forget who they are, is not really working out. And you know what's going on here? It's very simple. This goes back to the fact that the entire liberal political philosophy is based on a fraud. We have seen time and time again where liberals believe that the physical sciences should be subordinate to political agenda. That's that whole human-caused global warming thing. And remember, liberals actually believe that it is possible to reshape the human mind just by controlling the outside environment. This all goes back to Margaret Mead's book, Coming of Age in Samoa. That was the foundation for the liberal political revolution in this country, and it's a complete fraud. And that's why liberals make so many mistakes. They keep moving forward saying, if we just control the environment, we will remanufacture the human mind to our design specifications. And it keeps falling down, and they keep trying harder and harder, and they keep creating more and more chaos, because they will not go back and question that prime assumption. Just like people will not go back and question the prime assumption of global warming, just like people will not go back and question the prime assumption of the Big Bang. And it's leading to failure and failure and failure. Okay, John in Barbados is back. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. Yes, I want to make a comment. This window on the American election for the world. America is now number one. They've even overtaken Israel as the most hated nation.
Boy, that took some doing.
The corruption and the fraud and everything is just boggling the mind of people all over the planet.
Well, I mean, you know, Israel's been running our government for all these decades. Of course, we would not wind up mimicking Israel in their behavior, and the entire world sees that.
The other thing I wanted to mention is this nonsense going on with Stoltenberg, this Austrian Nazi in NATO.
Yes.
You know, I mean, these 300, they haven't actually got 300,000 yet.
No, but they're mobilizing. They're grabbing people.
Yeah, they're trying to persuade nations to put numbers of troops in. But if they put them on the Russian border, all they are is well, they're dead men walking, really, because that border will be cleared of any NATO troops rapid.
I disagree. I disagree. If Donald Trump wins the popular vote tomorrow in a landslide, I expect that Putin will refuse to rise to a provocation. He might even let NATO start gaining territory into Russia rather than let it go to an all-out confrontation, knowing that when Trump takes office and calls off the war, they'll go back to status quo ante, and NATO will be ordered to leave the Russian territory that it's taken.
I'm not so sure that that will be the scenario played out, because at the moment now, what I'm hearing is in Syria, huge numbers of Russian helicopters and Syrian equipment are now in the air in Homs province, approaching Raqqa. They are knocking these Takfiris out at a terrific rate.
Yes.
Apparently, a Russian aircraft was targeted, and okay, they didn't manage to shoot it down, but that looks like it stirred the Russian Air Force into massive retaliation.
Well, I don't think what's going on in Syria is pertinent to this idea about avoiding an all-out confrontation with NATO across Europe. Certainly the European people don't want to see that happen, and nobody's buying the idea that this in any way, shape, or form is Russia's fault. Russia's clearly not the aggressor here. The issue that I raised is, pardon me, if Donald Trump wins the popular vote tomorrow, Putin's best strategy is going to be to just do a holding action and even surrender Russian territory rather than allow the situation to escalate, knowing that Trump will pull the plug on the war and NATO will be required to surrender the territory and go back to the original borders. That's Putin's best option, because if NATO invades and Putin goes full war on them, then even Donald Trump might not be able to stop it.
Well, the other thing I'm looking at as well is the situation after the election in America. I don't think it matters which one wins, and I fear that Hillary might win, or steal it.
Steal it, yes. We don't use the words Hillary and win in the same sentence on this show.
Yeah, so if she steals it, there will be civil unrest. I'm not showing violence, but civil disobedience. And it doesn't matter if Donald Trump wins. The Democrats will do the same thing. We're going to get civil disobedience in America no matter which house wins, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans.
Well, this goes back to Sun Tzu and the art of war, because if Hillary steals the election tomorrow, the American people are going to feel they have the moral high ground. They got robbed. If Donald Trump wins the popular vote tomorrow, the Democratic supporters of Hillary Clinton don't have the moral high ground. They know they've been cheating. They know they've been stealing the Trump signs. They know they've been rigging absentee ballots and everything. They're not going to feel like they have a moral high ground from which to justify civil unrest. Now, there may be some with these bought and paid for civil unrest groups like Black Lives Matter, but it wouldn't be a mass uprising the way that you're going to see on the other side. Because they, in their heart of hearts, they know they're wrong.
Yeah, but I wouldn't discount the people who are being persuaded by George Soros. I wouldn't discount them at all, because they're getting paid to do this.
Yeah, but Soros is paying ringleaders, and ringleaders are only as effective as the body of non-paid volunteers, parasites, and useful idiots they can attract around them. And again, Hillary Clinton supporters, they know they've been doing wrong. The computer hacking, the ballot stuffing, and all they know they're wrong. They don't really have that sense of moral rightness that would motivate them to the same degree of civil unrest that we would see on the side of Donald Trump's people. I'd like to avoid it completely. I'm hoping that tomorrow's election has Donald Trump in such a crushing landslide that everybody's going to say, oh, wow, I guess there never really was a contest to begin with. And Hillary's people are just going to lick their wounds and say, you know, gosh darn that vast right-wing conspiracy, and they would be off.
Well, the other thing that I've noticed is that, or been reading in various news sources, is that 80,000 ethnic Ukrainians are leaving Ukraine, West Ukraine, and going to Russia to find work. And that's happening month on month. 80,000 a month.
And they're estimating a quarter of them do not expect to ever return home. They're going to turn eastern Ukraine into a desert, and Poroshenko may eventually re-grab it, but it's going to be worthless. The industrial base has been bombed into rubble. The workforce is all left. And it's a Pyrrhic victory at best.
Well, it amazes me that a few months ago Putin offered huge tracts of land to people who were willing to immigrate into Russia, this is in the east, and farm the land. Now, a lot of these people leaving Ukraine are farmers. Are they going to take Putin up on that offer and farm the land?
It sounds like it. It sounds like it. I mean, for any young family that has come from a farming background, it's a great offer. Unfortunately, Claire and I are too old, and I haven't farmed anything in too long, or I'd take Putin up on his offer.
Well, the thing is, again, this is Putin 3-4 moves ahead, offering free land, and then all these people start leaving Ukraine. The man he must be psychic or physic.
Okay. All right. Anything else, John?
No, thanks, Mike. I'll be staying up with several packs of beer to watch the election tomorrow.
Well, I'm going to have a bottle of scotch. I'm going to tell you that right now here. Okay, let's see. We're going to switch over to Mark in North Carolina. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I do. Is that Ukrainians from West Ukraine or East Ukraine that's going over there, by the way?
I think it's the Eastern Ukrainians who are going over, but there may be many from the West. Ukraine as a whole has become a disaster following the U.S. coup d'etat, which is, of course, what happens to every country that the U.S. goes in and overthrows the government. The quality of life goes down, opportunities go down, people start leaving. And everyone's always saying, oh, these poor refugees, we must do something about it. Yeah, let's stop these U.S. wars of aggression that are making them refugees in the first place. Let's just leave these poor people where they are. Let's leave them in their homes at peace, and then we don't have to deal with this mess.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing people from Western Europe leaving in droves to go to Russia. Russia's the only place that's seemingly willing to fight the globalists right now. And that brings me up to what you were saying about...
And you don't have to worry about GMO in the food.
Exactly. What Trump should do if he wins is he should tell the military, even if you're ordered to attack Russia or attack Syrian positions, stand down and wait till I'm president. This is not, I don't be a bold move, but he should... What can they do? They can't outvote him anymore. That's it. He's going to be the president of the United States.
Technically, he would be in violation of the Logan Act. Okay.
Would he really?
Yeah, he would, unfortunately. Until he takes that oath of office, he's still a private citizen. Okay. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And... let's see, we got callers waiting on the line. Before I get to it, though, a couple of stories breaking. Gilad Osman just came out with an article, and we just posted it to WhatReallyHappened.com, which, by the way, is still under very, very heavy attack by Hillary's Tantrum Squad. And I figure it's going to be this way through the rest of the election, and we're just going to have to live with that. Is Donald Trump what Michael Moore promised to be and never was? And Gilad is pointing out that Michael Moore has always been out there saying these are the problems with the United States, but he always stops short of the core. When he was out there talking about Wall Street corruption, he would never talk about who the criminals actually were. And so Gilad is pointing out he's not surprised Michael Moore is now stumping for Wall Street's pet candidate, Hillary Clinton, because at heart he's a liberal and he's willing to offer up whipping posts for the American wrath, but he's never quite gotten through to what initiates these problems. The other story that's coming on out, this is apparently from Fox News correspondents Adam Housley and Malia Zimmerman, and this is just now coming on out. The guards for the Benghazi consulate hired by Hillary Clinton's State Department were never vetted. There was no background check done on them, and it turned out they were part of a local militia. They belonged to Al-Qaeda. And Hillary just let the place burn to the ground, everybody get killed. Those forces who were on standby, ready to go and rescue the ambassador and the staff, were never given the go-ahead. And they've now gone public saying that, in point of fact, they were in position. They could have been there very quickly. Obama and Hillary wanted that place burned to the ground for whatever reason, cover up the smuggling of weapons from Libya to ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria. Nasty, nasty stuff. All right, let's start taking phone calls. We're going to have time for one before the top of the hour. Nick in California, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike. How are you?
Fine.
So I was calling in with, it's always good to be right, and in a sense, you were absolutely correct, according to Larry Nichols, when it came to the 650,000 emails being a distraction from the real crime. He came out and said that over the weekend, and that it was just a big distraction, and that we should have never paid any attention to it.
Well, I disagree. I disagree with Larry Nichols because, as it turns out, Comey's hands were forced both by the New York authorities, who are going to go public with the 650,000 emails. And by the way, Congress has their own copy now. And the fact that Judicial Watch had filed a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit for the FBI's records in the email investigation, which they're entitled to get if it's a closed investigation. So Comey was basically forced to declare it reopen to thwart Judicial Watch. And that was the real motivation for the announcement, and now, as of yesterday, he's tried to bury it in terms of its effect on Hillary Clinton with this ridiculous idea that they have thoroughly gone through 650,000 emails in only 10 days' time. Thanks a lot for the phone call, Nick. We got to let you go, and we'll be back after station identification. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3. And phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. I'm going to be very sparing on the phone calls, though, because I got a lot of stuff to get through before the end of the program. Let's go to Alex in Florida. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael. Thank you for having me on the phone. I will tell you that I think Hillary Clinton has played the biggest race card in the world, and the whole reason that either way, no matter who wins, there's going to be unrest. A lot of it's because of Hillary Clinton playing the race card, acting like it's uneducated white men that like Trump, and on, you're a racist.
The deplorables and so forth. Well, you know, what's really interesting, I got an email from somebody who's at the Sarasota rally, and there's a large contingent of black Americans with signs, blacks for Trump, and they're being treated like rock stars. Same thing with the Hispanics. They're being welcomed and applauded and say, thank you. And, people generally tend to get along. It's opportunists and politicians who try and fan up divisions to maintain control, whether it's race or religion or anything. And every election cycle we see this happen. You'd think the American people would grow up and not fall for this dirty trick over and over and over again. Which is, divide and conquer. And again, go back to the COINTELPRO program of the 1960s, where the FBI was deliberately fanning racial tension as a way to split the American people who were uniting in their opposition to that war in Vietnam. This is how the government likes to play. They love to play dirty. They think it's their divine right.
Yeah, I put a Hillary for prison sign up in my front yard, and I've lived on the same street for like 25 years. And it's unbelievable how there's people that kind of look at you differently now, like you're a racist or whatever. And they don't want to have an educated conversation where we could resolve thoughts and innuendos and things like that. But they just want to judge you, and it's all because of Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party. I hate to say it, they suck.
Okay, let's see here. I'm going to need to do something.
Are you there?
Yeah, I am. I'm just dealing with the tantrum people. Okay.
Hey, Michael, I sent you a song.
Hang on. Yes, I got the song. I listened to it. Thank you very much. Amazingly enough, considering that this is a blue state here in Hawaii, I've run into one person who's actually been a friend of the family for a lot of times, who's absolutely going to vote for Hillary, and was trying to communicate all that's been going on, and I kept getting, oh, I don't need to listen to Fox News, they're biased. I don't need to listen, I don't care about the WikiLeaks. I have NPR on my radio all day long, and they've told me that Donald Trump is just this horrible, terrible person. And my response to that is thinking that you understand Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump by listening to NPR is like thinking that you understand Adolf Hitler from looking at the Lena Riefenstahl movies. Okay, you absolutely don't. And it kind of sent this image where the liberals are not the intellectual elites they like to think they are. They're actually very narrow-minded and uninformed, and worse, they're arrogant in their ignorance. And they're secure in their conviction that if they don't know something, it's not worth knowing anyway. And that, of course, is, part of the pathway to fanaticism.
Pride. They don't want to hear the truth. You can have the truth on bread ready to feed it to them, and they do not want to hear it. And it's just pathetic that where they're at. And it happens with family members, and it happens with neighbors that you've known forever. And it's just real sad that it's it's because they've been brainwashed.
Yes.
That they feel that way.
Okay, well,
Are you there?
yeah, I'm still here, but I'm also trying to deal with the hacker attack on my server. So, Alex, we're going to let you go and switch over to Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. I don't know if you got the information out about the gentleman with his son left his truck on the side of the road, went down fishing. Somebody yelled, F Trump, come back up. They totally burned his brand new truck. Like it was just scorched to nothing. Brand new, like it looked like it was brand new, like the frame.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. I am absolutely not surprised. I mean, that's what Hillary Clinton has turned the Democrats into, the party of the thugs and the vote stealers and all the rest of that. So, let's see. Pardon me for this, but the hackers have succeeded in really messing up my site, and so I'm having to take some direct action. I actually had some guy who's in a union make a very serious threat to cause me bodily harm for my Hillary for Prison T-shirt. But again, I think lifelong Democrats have to be looking at what's going on and realizing, just like the rank-and-file FBI are very unhappy at their new public image at the hands of James Comey, long-time Democrats have to be very unhappy at their new public image at the hands of Hillary Clinton, of people who behave like this, who burn up trucks, who deface homes, throw rocks through windows. I mean, it's an ugly, ugly situation.
Yeah, it's reverse. If you look, everything, like previous caller said, everything that they call Trump, it's reversed. It's what they are. I'm a Democrat, and I can see that. It's reversed. They're racist. They're bigoted. They're intolerant because they have that belief where they're Marxists. They're globalists and Marxists, and then they throw in the low information voters with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
That listen to NPR. I'm scared for tomorrow, Mike, because there's a lot of the Walking Dead that are going to vote, and there's a lot of low information voters and plus the illegals. Did you see Obama with that woman? Talking about
he's out there basically saying, yeah, go ahead and vote, and nothing's going to happen to you. I mean, that's misprision, violation of election law. Obama basically has committed a crime. He's encouraging an illegal act. When he tells the illegals...
Did you see the woman, the woman looked like she was going to hug him, and her eyes were sparkling. She was all jiggly in her seat. It's like they are brainwashed. I mean,
in the case of the illegal immigrants, they have been told if they can get into this country and vote in this election and make Hillary the president, that they will be made U.S. citizens. And that's why they're fully on board. They're not thinking about anything beyond that green card. And the part that angers me so much about this pandering to the illegal immigrant voters is this idea that this nation was built by generation after generation after generation of Americans as our legacy to the next generation of Americans. And Hillary and her people are carving it up and bartering it to illegal immigrants and refugees in exchange for their votes. It's not theirs to give away like that.
But look at what's going on in France and Germany. Did you see the wall that's being built in Germany?
Yes.
Around it's like 15 foot high of rocks in mesh steel. That is what you can expect here, Mike, because they're not going to assimilate here. They're going to come here to get, put on the dole, and they're not going to assimilate. They'll have their little, and eventually it'll be looking like France and Germany's gone. People don't realize that. They're gone. They're gone.
Yes.
They got tent cities in downtown Paris. That is what things to come by the globalists. Because, like I said, this is not about Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. It's about the globalists around the globe versus the nationalists. That is what this is about. And then, Mike, on NATO, Russia's not, I got to disagree. Russia will not let them cross the border in a large amount. This is why he moved the missiles to Kaliningrad. And if they move large amounts of troops, Putin's going to use tactical. He has to, because to move that amount of troops, he has no way to counter that in that amount of time, so he would have to use tactical.
I beg to disagree. I beg to disagree. Russia has maintained its rail system to a very high degree. I mean, in the United States of America, rail has been de-emphasized in favor of the personal automobile and trucks. But if you look at the rail transport system in Europe and in Russia, they are in fine repair, and they are everywhere, and they are capable of carrying a huge number of weapons and troops because they're designed as part of the military infrastructure. Russia has gone back to running those nuclear missile trains, the ones that from overhead drones and spy aircraft, they look like regular passenger and freight trains, but the cars are actually carrying launchable ICBMs, and they just run them around the rail system so the U.S. doesn't know where they are.
And I wonder if most of those NATO troops are going to be pot smokers and overweight slightly there.
Yeah, probably. I mean, Ash Carter's been lowering the requirements for American inductees, as it were. The other situation here is that, again, the people on NATO, on the front lines, they're not motivated. They know they do not have a moral authority. They know they're the invaders and not Russia. And I don't think Putin will be the first to use nuclear weapons. He won't use them until he's absolutely got no choice. Because whoever uses the nukes first is going to be seen in the history books as the aggressor. And you need to remember, in all of the history of warfare, and for all the talk about Saddam's nuclear weapons and Assad's nuclear weapons and Russia's nuclear weapons and everything, there's only one nation that's ever been insane enough to actually use a nuclear weapon of mass destruction on the civilians of another country, and that is the United States of America. And Truman did it basically to demonstrate to the rest of the world that we were psychotic enough to actually do this, to buy us a little bit of leverage room in the post-war years as we set up Bretton Woods and everything. And we are already hearing talk from the U.S. government of abandoning the no first-use policy, of simply going and saying, well, we're better off launching with nukes now rather than risking a loss in a head-to-head, full-on ground war. So Putin understands that, and he's not going to be the first to use nuclear weapons. Somebody may try and use one and blame it on him, of course.
On a real quick last note, did you see the Tsar bomb replica they moved into the museum?
Yes, I have. It's a big thing.
Yeah, my God, Mike, I never seen anything such a big bomb in all my life. That thing it's like, it's almost the size of a gasoline tanker truck.
Well, yeah, it really is, and it had a maximum design yield of 100 megatons. When they tested it, they dialed it back to 50. They were that scared of it, and it left a huge...
And they had to use a parachute on it, too, because it had to slow its descent.
Well, most nuclear weapons are parachute delayed. The Mark 82 has retarding fins. The idea being that you want to give your own aircraft time to get out of the area before they go off.
Did you ever see there's a 3D map you can drop it on, nuke map?
Yes.
Because I live in New Jersey, so I did on New York City, and like the blast radius is like the flame out blast radius is almost over here. It's like crazy.
Well, nobody's going to be using 50 megaton bombs in the coming war. In fact, the trend lately has been toward what are rather ridiculously called tactical nukes, the smaller weapons that limit the damage to an intended target rather than try and destroy an entire city, which is what the strategic nukes were supposed to do. Now, the strategic nukes are still out there, but most of the nuclear weapons these days, the yield is selectable prior to launch. And the new model of nuclear war is limited to important military targets only because we're going to go on in and take over those cities and factories and use them for ourselves, so why should we blow them up? The worst, of course, is the neutron enhancement bomb, which is clearly a weapon of aggression and invasion that was developed by the United States of America. This is a nuclear weapon that actually has a very small, relative to a nuclear bomb, explosive effect, but it puts out this intense shower of neutron radiation that just kills everything all around it. But if you're designing a bomb to kill living things but not damage the real estate, buildings, and factories, then clearly you intend to use those buildings and factories after the bomb's used.
What's the life on a neutron bomb in terms of radiation count? It's got to be a heck of a lot longer, right?
No, the neutron bomb, the after effects are actually very, very quick. There are going to be some materials on the ground that are rendered radioactive by the neutron bombardment, and of course, there's the fallout from the nuclear core itself. But neutron radiation is kind of like an X-ray. It comes and it goes, and then it's gone.
And then the troops can come in and sweep the place up.
with their Ray-Ban sunglasses.
All right, thanks a lot, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot.
Good luck to Trump. Good luck to Trump tomorrow.
Absolutely.
For all of us.
Absolutely, and we're going to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are rejoining our network, and I realize I'm just a little bit late here. We're going to switch over to Milton in Pennsylvania. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, aloha, Michael. I had a question. As far as anything that breaks out after the elections, I think the Republicans, and I'm voting for Trump, I'm a Democrat, and but I think we're smarter in the head, for lack of a better word, to cause any scenes afterwards. Either way it goes, we reserve that right to protest peacefully. And somebody mentioned about possibility of civil war, if you could explain what would civil war look like in this country?
Well, unfortunately, the last Civil War was delineated by geography. You had the secessionist states and you had the Union. A civil war based on a stolen election, it would be hard to determine who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. It would be hard to draw the battle lines. It might look more like a guerrilla war in the streets, person to person, with all of Hillary's supporters making war on all of Donald Trump's supporters. I hope they're not that stupid, because I would like to remind all the Democrats that you are all gun grabbers and you hate guns and you don't use guns. And we Republicans, we believe in the Second Amendment, and we have a lot of guns. So let's calm this thing down before it gets out of control. There are 200 million gun owners in this country, with an estimated 800 million firearms and 1 trillion rounds of ammunition. If we were the problem, you would have known it by now. The problem is the politicians who justify their taking of your money by messing about with your life, who take away things that belong to you and then license them back to you. And it's all a gigantic scam. Look what happened in Belgium. They were without a federal government for almost 2 years. Best time in recent history. Spain is without a central federal government right now. The Spanish are loving it. Maybe it's time that we try that here, especially if Hillary steals that election. Okay?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm a gun owner. I don't like guns, but we'll be here.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch to Sherry in Central Texas. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike.
Amen to what you just said. It's not about liberals or Democrats. You change heads, and you still have the same snake. A liberal can be someone you want to blame if you're a conservative, but it won't solve the problem because it's not about that. See, and I just want to play something forward that you said earlier, and this is really the solution. You have talk show hosts like Rush Limbaugh. He's for Trump, but he has to play that party tug of war thing because he is on a network. I've even heard George Norrie lately kissing up to his network that he works for, which is really pains my heart. But anyway, there's no solution if the problem isn't correctly identified, and to solve it and to identify it, you have to look to the oligarchies, the corporate media, as you call them, very rightly. Mm-hmm. Corporate ruling bodies, banksters, and all this stuff, the healthcare and all this. We don't have to follow these drummers, see, and we don't have to look to the other party. It's all of us together under one force. These pillars of Wall Street can fail. They're not too big to fail because we can stop feeding them. Trump sees this, Bernie sees it, Chris sees this, and I have a question. But
all right, I'm going to have to hold you. I'm going to have to hold you over the commercial break. Okay, so don't go away. We'll be right back after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going to go back to Kathleen. I'm sorry, it was Sherry in Central Texas we were talking to. And you had one more thing you wanted to share with us.
Yeah, like I was saying, Trump, Bernie, and I think Chris Christie don't adhere to this ideology that it's always the other party, and that's the problem. My question is that the more we use cell phones and online banking and doing business online, I run across problems all the time because I'm so technophobic. It creeps me out. I like to do things the old-fashioned way. But the more they database us, Google us, and lay us bare and everything, how much of that is going to hurt us? I mean, it gives me peace of mind to not use these technologies, but I know other people are very attached to them. Mm-hmm. How dangerous are they going to be? How can we stand up and march to the right drummer, march to the people that have their pulse, their fingers on our pulse, that we resonate with, and still be technological in our practices? I'm worried about it.
Well, history has shown any new development can be used for either good or bad. It's up to the people who are in control. And so the problem isn't the computers, it isn't the cell phones, it isn't the tablet, it's the government that has decided that it's okay to use your computer equipment to spy on you in violation of the Bill of Rights. And I think when you have a good government, technology will serve the people. When you have bad government, the technology is going to serve the government against the people.
I'll cling to that hope, Mike.
Okay.
And maybe I'll get more tech when that happens.
Well, you can go too far, and I grew up with computers. I certainly have a lot of computers around this place. But I've reached the point where I look at each new whiz-bang gizmo, especially this Internet of Things. Do I really need to have a computer in my coffee maker? No, I don't. I've gone back to the French press situation. It's just one more point of failure. And you look at all the problems they're having with computers in the latest cars, even without the issue of somebody being able to hack in and cause an accident, it's just another point of failure. And I really do think we need to go back to a simpler, more elegant lifestyle. Doesn't mean abandoning the technology. Just say, let's use it where it's really needed and not just as a sales decoration. Some of the things I've seen that now have computers on them, and you just say, this is ridiculous, and nobody's going to buy them. Computers in our dog food dishes, computers in our marital aids, computers in our weed whackers. Like I need a gyro in the weed whacker to cut a perfectly flat hedge. You watch, somebody's going to take that idea off my show, and we'll see it in the stores for Christmas.
Right. We don't want it to enslave us, in other words.
No, we don't.
And exploit us. Yeah.
Sort of reminds you just how prophetic Fritz Lang really was in Metropolis.
Okay.
All right, so thank you, Sherry. We're going to switch to Kathleen in Paris. Bonjour, mon ami. Comment vas-tu?
Oh, hello?
You're on the air.
Hi. Oh, hi, Michael. It's good to hear you. Aloha. You talked about Metropolis. I love that.
Yes.
Fritz Lang. And did you see the Japanese animated one?
No, I did not. I'll certainly have to look for that in my copious free time.
Yes. You will love it. If you're a fan of Fritz Lang's, then you have to see the Japanese animated one.
Well, when I was in film school, we looked at all of these old classics, like The Andalusian Dog, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and they were wonderful, and we learned a lot about the basic elements of visual storytelling from them.
Yes, you owe it to yourself. Unless you just know Fritz Lang's by heart, it would be a great thing to see it and then the Japanese one kind of juxtaposed to each other.
It would be interesting, but it's kind of funny as the regular cable TV networks continue to drown us in the Bourne supremacy and everything. I find myself more and more hunting through the Turner Classic Movies Guide and looking back at Intolerance and some of these other amazing films. And silent films were an art form because you didn't have that spoken language. And I think Mel Brooks was actually onto something when he did his silent movie. He played it for the comedy, but it's like mime. It's an art form unto itself, and it's one that's not being really paid attention to. All right, listen.
Oh, dear.
All right, I'm going to hold you over the commercial break. Stay on the line. I'll come back to you, and then we can talk about some serious stuff. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going to go right to Kathleen in Paris. You had something else you wanted to share with us very seriously.
Yeah. Well, you know how you talk sometimes about that America is in this place now like the USSR was before it fell down?
Yes.
And I heard somebody talking about at that period that there was so much corruption and bribery and kickbacks and this kind of business going on that if you did something honest, you would not be looked at in a good light as doing something honest. You would be looked at as stupid.
Yeah, you're absolutely. Well, the nail that sticks up gets hammered, and it is part of the signs of rot that as society continues to stratify, there's more effort kept on keeping the lower masses low in order to keep them under control. There are also a lot of parallels with the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. Prior to it splitting up into the Eastern and Western empires, some of the behavior of our ruling class is getting into the neighborhood of Caligula and Tiberius in terms of sheer, moral decrepitude.
Well, you know what made me think of recently about that is Donna Brazile giving the questions to, that was a two-way street. Donna Brazile gave them, and Clinton took them. So we're all crucifying Donna Brazile, and she lost her job, and isn't she awful? But didn't somebody accept them and use them? And an honest person would have said, "Oh, Donna, I couldn't accept that. That would be cheating."
Well, no, you're absolutely right. Donna did not commit these immoralities, unethical behavior in a vacuum. Yes, there were people at the Democratic National Committee and Hillary's campaign who said, "Yeah, we'll take this." That's what's coming out in the WikiLeaks email. They were coordinating. Podesta had this private off-the-record dinner where he had 65 of the top executives and prostitutes and correspondents of the corporate media that came on in, including people from CNN, to be part of the Hillary Clinton campaign. And it may very well be that Donna Brazile was actually encouraged by upper management at CNN to do what she did, the same thing that we're seeing now with Wolf Blitzer.
Yeah.
So it's a culture of corruption.
A culture. I missed about the first 5 or 10 minutes of the show. Did you talk about the Steve Pieczenik soft coup, counter coup thing?
We mentioned it last week real briefly, and basically what he's describing is this final push to try and transform America from a republic with a democratically elected government into a true fascist economic dictatorship. And we're well on the way to that. I would hope that he's accurate about a counter coup, and certainly we know within the lower levels of government and certainly the rank and file of the military, they are very upset with what is going on and how badly they're being used. But as far as anything actually being done, there's nothing happening yet. Same thing with Anonymous that said they were going to release an incriminating video today. I'm at the point right now where I don't devote any airtime or website time to announcements about things that are going to be released or going to happen because they always come up short. When something is released and when something does happen, then I'll focus on it. But so far, I
listened to a bit today from this guy Steve Benoon in Israeli Live, and they think that he's not good, that he speaks about Kissinger, and anybody that's saying Kissinger was good can't be on the right track.
Well, again, Kissinger has a very carefully promoted public image. And again, one of my concerns about Donald Trump is that too much of his worldview is based on what he gets from the corporate media. Now, by now, he's aware the corporate media is full of it, and he'll probably adjust his thinking accordingly. But if he succeeds in overcoming the election fraud tomorrow, he is going to be going into the White House in many ways as dangerously naive as Jimmy Carter. And I hope that he would very quickly realize who's on his team and who isn't, fire the ones who are not on his team, and get some advisors who are going to say, look, this is what's really been going on, that they didn't want you to know about.
I cringe every time he talks about taking out ISIS, like Clinton didn't create.
Well, Trump is playing to the American people, the majority of whom still are unaware that ISIS was a creation of Obama and Hillary Clinton. He's campaigning for president. He's playing to what he thinks is the majority view of the voters.
Thank you for everything, Michael.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to switch to Tim in Wyoming. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. Thanks for taking my call. What's on my mind is you mentioned earlier, somebody was saying something about low information voters, and I'm wondering now. The question I have for the people out there who may be trying to decide which way the wind blows, so to speak, and which way they should vote, still at this late date. There are some people out there that are saying they would like to move to another country if candidate A or candidate B reaches the nexus of government, which of course is not the nexus of government. That's supposed to be us. But if they reach the White House, how do we respond to people like that who have no idea which way they should
anybody? Well, first of all, right now the polls are showing all the undecideds and independents are swinging toward Trump. So that's already out there. But for all these people out there saying, well, if Donald Trump wins, I'm moving to Canada or wherever, the best response is goodbye. Fine.
Right. That is the idea that I have as well. But at the same time, I'd like to, let me,
sorry to interrupt here. Do you realize the arrogance of people like Whoopi Goldberg who are out there saying, if Trump wins, I'm moving to Canada? Like somehow Whoopi Goldberg is indispensable to American life? Don't get me wrong. Whoopi Goldberg is very, very talented. I loved her comedy. When I knew and met her in Hollywood, she seemed like she had her head screwed on pretty straight, but time and corruption, who knows what's going to go on. But all of these people saying, I'm going to leave the country. Fine, leave the country. I don't care.
Right. As I said, I think the same way. I mean, people that think that because the ship is afloat thanks to the other people who are bailing water and also pulling at the oars, and they're just riding along, they think that because those people have decided that the ship will sink, if we don't do more, they wish to get on the life rafts and leave, or just jump overboard. But those are the people. That's the way I see it with the people like that, and they can't. They're listening to the propaganda in essence.
Well, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to make a prediction right now. If Donald Trump overcomes the election fraud tomorrow, we're not going to see any of these celebrities who promised they were going to leave the country leave the country. They'll just shut up and go on living their lives. What we will probably see, though, are a lot of highly placed political people head for the border. It'll be a bug out to any place that doesn't have extradition. We're going to see that.
Right. Well, that's as you say, the bugging out. They're gonna flee prostitution, as you say.
Yes.
They're all looking for their hidey hole if they don't already have one. They probably already have money squirreled away that they can live on for extended periods. But
absolutely.
At the same time, there are no places that people can go who have been part of the rampant criminality. The way I see it, I don't think that they should have any place to go in the world if we have a constitutionally operating government. If we have a government that's down to, I'd say 5% of what it is today, which is probably correct. I think Ron Paul said a figure somewhere around there before, between 5 and 10%. That's what we should have as far as what our the constitutional limitations.
Well, it's just business-like. If you study anybody who has an education in business, they're going to tell you management should never exceed 10% of the workforce. The whole Japanese economic boom was based on, very small executive departments and everything focused on the workers here. But here in the United States, we have more people working in government than working in manufacturing, and that's another reason why we're in such serious trouble. Because everybody wants to be a boss, everybody wants to be a manager, they want those sky-high paychecks, and, Uncle Phil is going to create a new job for me that's got a $250,000 a year paycheck to sit around and put rubber stamps on a piece of paper and pass it to the next person who puts another rubber stamp on there. And we are management heavy, both in our economic endeavors and certainly in our government.
Right. I think the people that are running things today. Well, obviously, as you say, top-heavy government. We're at the edge of the knife. The knife blade is coming down on us, but the knife blade is government. We're all being chopped to pieces by our very own so-called representatives.
Well, they don't represent us. They represent the large corporations. They represent Wall Street. They represent Israel. They represent everybody on the planet except the American people. And that's really what stinks. They're representing the illegal immigrants and the refugees and all these other interests. And the one demographic that they're supposed to be representing is the one they ignore.
Of course. Now, there was another question I had, too, which I can't remember now because I started asking other questions. Anyway, well, thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it, and I'll listen to the rest of the show. Thanks for doing everything, and hopefully we'll all be saying President Trump tomorrow at the end of the voting period, and everything will come out the way we hope it should. It should.
Well, time will solve that mystery, and thank you very much. To be very honest, unless it is an overwhelming landslide for Donald Trump, regardless of the outcome tomorrow, I think we're going to see a repeat of Florida in 2000, where there's going to be lawsuits flying back and forth, accusations that Russia was hacking the election. These oligarchs are not going to go without a fight. They are absolutely secure in their belief that anything they do to hang on to power and wealth is a good thing. And this whole idea of will of the people and democracy is an idea that's outlived its time, which is why you see editorials in the New York Times saying maybe we should go back to a monarchy. Now, there is one advantage to a monarchy, and that is the guy who's in charge knows they're stuck with the job for life, and they can't just say, I'm going to do what works now, and somebody else will worry about it later because that somebody else isn't coming along. That's one of the weaknesses of our government, is everybody who's in the Congress and the White House is doing what makes things look good now, and somebody else down the road will deal with the consequences. That was when they started the Federal Reserve. Everybody who started the Federal Reserve knew at some point in the future it would lead to the destruction of this entire country, but that was going to be way, way off long after the people who started the Federal Reserve were in their graves after lifetimes of wealth, privilege, and comfort.
Of course. But at the same time, when those people started the Federal Reserve, they actually had that plan in mind to destroy the country, because by putting the country under slavery to a fiat money system, there's no relief from debt ever.
Yeah,
so
it's a system of enslavement.
It's
a system of enslavement. That's exactly what it is. All right, Tim, we're going to let you go. Last phone call of the day today. Mateus in Canada, thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael, I have a controversial idea here, but please give it a chance. Okay, it's in the spirit of fighting fire with fire, or if you can't beat them, join them, or two can play at this game, lesser of two evils, or a necessary evil, okay? So think about the Project Veritas video, quote, "We've been busing in people to deal with you effers for 50 years, and we're not going to stop now." So I say that either we all play by the rules or none of us do, and it's not fair if one side is voting multiple times and the other isn't. If we want to put pressure on them to reform the voting system, we need to give them incentives. And the best way to make them want to reform is to do a better job at cheating than they do.
I can't go along with that. I can't go along with that. I'm sorry.
You can't, but
two wrongs do not make a right. Okay?
So I know that you don't represent that, but just to like, for the sake of debate, let me just play the devil's advocate just for a minute here. Like, what's better, like the Democratic Party cheating with the intent to cheat forever, or the Republican Party cheating with the intent to win power and fixing the rigged system? Like,
well, hang on. The fallacy of your theory is that if the Republican Party cheats to win the election, that they're going to reform the system. No, they won't, because they won by cheating. They will preserve the system that gave them the power. That's always been the problem. The only way the election system is going to be reformed is for we, the American people, to basically stand up and say, this has got to stop. We're going to take sledgehammers to those electronic machines. We don't need central tabulation centers. We demand an honest, fair, and accurate voting system, or you are not a legal, legitimate government any longer. And frankly, at the first point election fraud is detected, it delegitimizes the entire federal government, whose sole justification for sucking money from our pockets and sending our children off to be killed and crippled in wars of conquest is that they supposedly represent the will of the voters. And if there's election fraud, they can't make that case. The burden of proof is on them to prove they won the election honestly before we are obligated to give them a single penny of our money or a single one of our children to die in their wars. They have to prove they legally won the election, or they're not a legitimate government.
I'm just so sick of having to have a landslide all the time just to be treated fairly. Like, it has to be a landslide. It's you know how hard it is to get a landslide? Like, the reason why it takes like 2/3 to change constitutional, to change our constitution takes 2/3 of something is because it's almost impossible. It's like we're being, we got our head held underwater here in this rigged, unfair system.
Okay, hang on. First of all, it's a 3/4 of the states to ratify an amendment to the Constitution, and that was done to prevent simple majorities, which are actually easy to come up with, from throwing our Constitution into chaos. The Constitution was supposed to be protected from trivial and callous tampering and tinkering, and that's why that 3/4 requirement is there. In terms of the elections for candidates for office, it's a simple majority, and that's the way it ought to be. Anyway, listen, Mateus, I got to let you go. Got to take a break for commercials. Back with the last segment of our program today. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. One final story that I wanted to fit in here. This has to do with the village of Naida, which is above the Arctic Circle in Siberia. And they have a very interesting natural phenomenon that happens every winter and across this 11-mile coastline. The water coming on in is freezing, and because of the shape of the beach and the action of the water, it tends to form these ice spheres. And it's kind of amazing to see. I was looking at the photos of that. They have discovered over the years that the larger the spheres are, the worse the coming winter will be. And this year, those ice spheres are 3 feet across. And we are already hearing that winter has come early and hard to Siberia. They have gotten effectively 4 months' worth of snow just in the last 5 weeks. And it looks like we are, in fact, going to have another very rough winter, and already the global warming people are out there saying, no, human-caused global warming makes snow and ice. Don't you understand? You people are really too stupid to understand how human-caused global warming makes for more snow and ice. And yes, we were wrong back in 2000 when we said snowfalls are a thing of the past, but we know much better now what's going on here, and the usual bovine excrement. All right, we're here at the end of the show. It's the day before Election Day. Tomorrow, history is going to be made one way or the other. And please get out and vote. If you're voting for Donald Trump, wear something red, bright red. The brighter, the better. If you don't vote, somebody is going to take your registration and vote in a direction you may not like. So even if you can't stand Trump or Hillary, get out there and vote for somebody else. Write in my name if you want. But if you sit on your butt, then you are part of the problem. And my advice would be to turn off the corporate TV news, stop listening to their projections and their forecasts, and especially tomorrow, don't listen to them when they're already saying, oh, the state's already gone to Hillary Clinton, because that is a lie to get the Trump voters to stay home. It isn't over until it's over, until that polling place closes. So don't let them bluff you into not getting out there and vote. There is so much on the line here. Hillary Clinton is going to get us into a world war. They may try and start one anyway if Trump wins, but we know Trump, when he gets into office, will try and stop it before we have mushroom clouds all over the place. Hillary has brain damage. She may actually think mushroom clouds are going to be a wonderful part of her historical legacy. The war queen, Hillary, mistress of the mushroom clouds. And we can laugh about it, but it is very serious. This is the establishment against we the people. This is the oligarchs, the money junkies, against we the people. We the people have to stand up and peacefully take back control of our country, because if we do not, violence is in the future that I would like to avoid. There's the music. Time for me to get on out of here. I got to do Jim Goddard up there in Vancouver. We'll be back tomorrow, Election Day, here on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Until then, stay skeptical, stay informed, share what you know with everybody that you know. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.